So today's session is all about understanding learning and development, and particularly understanding how to design ROI-driven learning and organizational development initiatives. So first of all, before I talk about technicalities of this topic, I would like to highlight, first of all, one fundamental point that what is ROI? What is the meaning of ROI when it comes to learning and organizational development, right? So ROI means return on investment. Now, when we look at ROI as a term, it's a very pure financial term where someone is talking about getting returns on the money that someone has invested. But please understand, when it comes to learning and organizational development interventions, there are other investments also which an organization does, which are intangible a lot of time. So, for example, let's say the time and effort that goes in designing a program, the time and effort that goes in brainstorming, the time and effort that goes in scheduling, conducting, and implementing the entire intervention. So these are certain other factors which are also important part of investment, which goes in designing any learning and organization development intervention. So that's the context. I mean, that's if you just calculate ROI in terms of the amount of money that you have invested in organizing a program, that will not give you complete picture. You will have to add these factors which are not visible. These are intangible factors. So that's the context and understanding of return on of investment. So before we get into the details and understand what are the steps, models which are available, create ROI of learning. First of all, understand why there is a need, first of all, to even have a talk or discussion about ROI-based learning, right? So it's a very fundamental question, which must have come in your mind, that why ultimately what is the need of ROI? I mean, learning and development function or interventions are basic hygiene in any organization. They should take place. If there are people in the organization, if organization wants to grow, then organization development must happen. So why ROI, right? So let's answer this question first before we go further. ROI is important when it comes to learning and organization development function is first because learning and organization development function in any organization is also a mainstream function. It's a key business driving function. Unfortunately, it is not written anywhere. Yeah, learning and development professionals, learning and organization develop professionals, they are the strategic partners of the business. But unfortunately, it is not written anywhere. It is something which a few learning and development professionals are able to establish and few are not able to establish. But why ROI? Because it's a mainstream function. The way you invest your time, energy, money in any business activity, similarly, the similar time, energy, and effort are invested in learning and organizational development activities. Therefore, like for any good investment, you will definitely like to find out what has been the ROI. Similarly, for learning and development interventions, it is very, very important to understand that, it is a mainstream function. It's a key business function. It is going to have some impact. And if there is some impact, there's going to be some impact. So it is important to have ROI calculated for this specific function too. Now, like I said, learning and development function is a mainstream function, but it is not written anywhere. So the key factor when it comes to ROI is the start point is the mindset of the learning and development manager or the learning and development professional who is leading the learning and development function in any organization. So is the individual thinking in this way that this is a mainstream business function, or if is individual just think in this way that this is not a mainstream function, this is a support function, so therefore my job is just to support mainstream business activity. So if that is the approach, then there is no question of ROI. But the approach is, if the mindset is different, if the mindset is that my function is a function which ensures that when people come in the organization, they get inducted in the organization correctly. My function is the function when people complete a specific tenure and they have to transit into new role. Is my function is the function which prepares people to transit in that role. Do you have that kind of mindset that my function is a function which helps an organization in managing the talent correctly? My function is the function which helps an organization in doing succession planning. My function is the function which helps leadership team of an organization stay together for a long duration of time. My function is responsible for creating openness, alignment, and a lot of initiative orientation within the organization. And if my function is capable of doing all these things, then it cannot be a support function. It has to be a mainstream function, because whatever I'm talking about, these are all mainstream business activity. They have direct impact on the overall business equation of the organization. Therefore, if you are new in learning and development, or if you are thinking of making career in learning and development function, so my sense is that, please have this mindset that this function is a mainstream function. This function can impact business uh, in an organization as good as like any other function. So that's the start point to develop a ROI driven approach, right? So if the learning and development manager has this kind of approach, definitely the orientation will be towards result oriented interventions, or revenue oriented intervention. The second point, the second step, which any individual, any professional who has been learning and organization development should ask himself or herself, that how well do you know the business, right? Do you know the operational aspect of the business? Do you know just the strategic aspects of business? Do you understand transactions of the business? Do you know how well, how deep you have understanding about business? Because if you do not have deep understanding about business, your intervention design will reflect that, right? So the second point is that learning and development managers, when they induct themselves in an organization, they should induct themselves from a point of view of understanding each and every dimension of the business. Like, how does sales function work? What is the business equation? What is the profitability equation? Right? How does uh, uh, finance function, IT function, production department? How does various departments in an organization impact the overall business equation of the organization? So that's something which a learning and development manager should invest a lot of time in, and ask a lot of questions if needed, get first-hand understanding of a lot of things. This will actually help in designing a learning and development intervention. This will align the design of the learning and organization development intervention with the overall business equation. And this understanding of business will reflect when you will implement the design intervention in the organization, be it leadership development intervention, or it could be an intervention for the front line. It's very, very important for you to understand, ask this question to yourself: how well do you know the business? Well, if you don't know the business, then the next step is uh, plan, create a plan to understand the business. Meet various business heads in various departments. Spend time with them. Understand, what are their priorities, right? Without keeping in mind that this is an intervention in my mind, and that I want to plug this intervention here, and therefore I need to have a dialogue with the business head. No, just go with an open mind. Try and understand what is the business expectation, what are the challenges in the business function, what are certain good things which are working, things which are not working, right? So this will give you more understanding about the business and the challenges faced by various business function heads. That's the second point. So once you have understood business correctly, the second question you should ask yourself is why your organization has hired you. What is the objective? What problem are you solving in the organization? See, every job role in an organization is a solution, is providing some kind of solution to the overall business equation. So therefore, you need to ask this question to yourself, that why have they hired me? What problem I'm going to solve for the organization? So these are very fundamental questions that I'm talking about. Without diving into the learning and development ROI calculation models, I'm just trying to tell you some basic questions which will prepare you even for the before you start designing learning and development in organization development interventions in your organization. So if you get clarity about these certain questions, this will help you in giving you very good self-image about your own job in the organization. So once you are able to create that very clear self-image that, okay, this is my, this is the business equation, these are various business functions, and this is how they want to utilize my services. These are the problems I can solve for these various business functions. Then you can also look at what all can you do for various job families. So there are two ways of looking at. So the broader way is that you look at from the business function point of view, from a business equation point of view. The second approach could be that you can also look at various job families in the organization and look at how you can support various job families in an organization. The third approach could be looking at your role and your way of contribution by looking at life cycle of employees. So where do you contribute and how do you want to contribute at various life cycle stages of an employee in an organization? So for example, let's say for a new joiner, how would you like to contribute? Second, when people complete 1 year in the organization, then what would be your contribution, right? What would be your contribution for people who have been in the organization for a very long time? What could be your contribution to ensure a strong leadership level team in the organization? What could be your contribution to highlight? What could be your contribution to highlight to the organization that there is a second line of leadership in the organization which is getting ready for the next role? So these are various questions that you need to ask before you start designing the learning and development intervention or learning and organization development intervention in your organization. If you are just approaching learning and development and OD function from a program point of view, then I think you're not going in the right direction. Then you are then you are looking at the problem from a very superficial level. So first, these fundamental things will give you clear understanding about your role. How can you contribute? What are the various ways? So once you do this exercise, you will get plenty of ideas in your mind. Then you will not be picking up training module and fitting in here and there as per the requirement. Then you will be looking at creating interventions which will really have a deep impact in whatever purpose they have been designed for. So these are certain points that you need to ask before designing the intervention. Then second stage comes. So this was before you start designing learning and OD intervention. The second stage comes when you are in the process of designing learning and OD interventions in an organization. So when you are designing, again, you need to have a very clear dialogue with the business head or person who is responsible for a specific job family in an organization. That why, what are top two and three business challenges that the target group is facing in the organization, and what is the view of the business head about these problems. Once you have understood that view, then you can always do a brainstorming session and ask, okay, if this is the view that you have, then this is how I can solve the business challenges. Then once you have done this basic brainstorming session, then you look at, okay, how you can solve a specific business challenge with a structured intervention. A structured intervention which could be as for as less duration of as 3 months, which could be a long duration program of uh, of 2 months, 3 or 6 months, 7 months, or 12 months. Depends upon how are you looking at the problem and how you want to solve the problem. So when you do this, once you are able to understand the business context, once you are able to have a clear dialogue with the business head, then what happens? You both are very clear about expectation that the business head has from the program, and as a leader of learning and development, you have what you want to focus on when you are designing this intervention. You can use multiple tools, multiple methodologies while designing the intervention, but the purpose has to be very clear, and the purpose has to be very clearly understood by both the business head and you, and the endpoints should be very, very clearly established. So this is the start point of the design. Once you design the intervention, at that time, also be very, very clear that you alone or your intervention alone will not do the overall turnaround, right? It will be a joint effort, whereas you have certain responsibilities, business team, business heads, business leaders have certain responsibilities. If both the parties fulfill the responsibilities, the result is going to come. If both the parties are not aligned to overall approach and to this fundamental thoughts, no matter what you do, it will remain a feel-good factor in the organization. It will never become a result-oriented intervention in the organization. So then, once you have done this dialogue, once you have established this expectation very, very clearly, while you are designing the intervention, have small milestones in the intervention. Because what happens, so for example, let's say imagine you are designing a learning journey of 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, and you want to keep all the results towards the end of the intervention, or you want to calculate the impact of the entire intervention towards the end of the intervention, then it's a very it is a goal which is very far away. What you need to do, you need to create certain milestones in between the interventions. And as you create milestones in between the intervention, you need to create opportunities for participants to demonstrate what are they learning in the process. Okay, what have they learned? And you need to facilitate a forum where when a participant is demonstrating something, the business leader has very clear visibility, not of the outcomes, but what are they demonstrating in the entire journey. So what will happen by doing this, you will be able to develop a lot of conviction in business leader that the intervention design is correct and it is going in the direction in which the business outcomes or the expected outcomes will definitely come. So many a times the mistakes learning and development professionals do is that they design a very good intervention, but they keep all the result towards the end of the intervention. That is not going to help. See, understand that when you are designing a learning and development intervention and you are implementing in an organization, your business heads are also learning about the entire journey along with you, and therefore it is very important to keep having small forums in between where a lot of demonstration of learning happens. And because this demonstration of learning will help in building a lot of conviction, and it will increase conviction of business head in driving activities that you want to drive through the learning and development intervention. You will have to champion it, you will have to show courage and conviction to start with, but the intervention also has to be designed strategically in this fashion. Now, when you are calculating the return of investment, so there are various models available. One model which is very commonly used is called Kirkpatrick model, right? So according to Kirkpatrick model, there are 4 levels of evaluating the effectiveness or efficiency of any learning and development intervention. First level is looking at the reaction of the participants. So for example, let's say uh, you have conducted a training program or learning and development intervention. The first step is that how well participant have liked the program. What has been their reaction after this intervention? Do they say was it relevant, or they say that it was not relevant at all? It was just feel good. So how are they reacting after going through an intervention? That's the step number 1. The second step is where you are evaluating their understanding. It's about testing their understanding about the intervention. So you can use various tools here. You can design assessments to test their knowledge. So first is how have they felt. If they have felt good, that means they must have understood. So therefore if they have felt good, you need to take a feedback. Therefore the tool to use it is a feedback form. You use it towards the end of level 1. Then level 2, you test their understanding. You do an assessment and you find out how much they have understood about the content of the program. Because if they don't understand the content, if they don't like the content, if they don't understand the content, there are very rare chances that they will go and implement it. So then you do the testing of understanding of the participant and do these activities very, very seriously. Don't just, even when you are taking feedback, take it, design your feedback in such a way that, don't use standardized feedback to evaluate all the programs. I mean, various programs have various elements, and so you need to test those critical elements that you think will have maximum impact on the overall result of the entire intervention. Then you do the testing understanding in the second level, where you do the assessment. Once you have done the assessment, then your program, while you design the program, must have some action planning. I personally believe, I don't believe in one-time workshops or event-based learning. I mean, that's something which I have not seen participants gain a lot of benefit from. I always believe that action learning is the best way of learning, where your intervention is prolonged for, it continues for 2-3 months, where participants get enough opportunities to reflect and think about implementation. And if they get stuck in thinking, in getting certain answers, there should be some help available to them, so that then only learning, the process of learning will be complete. Otherwise, what happens, many a times participants come and attend the programs, they really like the program, they take notes, they go back and start implementing the program in their real life scenarios. And what happens, uh, and when they are actually implementing the program in their real life, they don't find any answers, they don't have anyone who can answer them, and then they leave whatever they have learned then and there. And that's how they never get conviction about learning intervention, because at the time when they wanted some kind of support, no one was available. The program happened, it was really good, fantastic program, it was done in a nice hotel, but nothing, no, there was no support available at the time of implementation. And understand that 80% of participants have the right intent of implementing the learning from the program, because they have invested their time, money, right? And therefore, if they don't implement correctly, then the overall impact will never come. So therefore, have this courage, have courage of going out and talking to the business heads that we will do an intervention which will definitely have an element of action learning. Without the element of action learning, it will just be a feel good event, and it will not give any kind of result. So you need to show this conviction to your business heads when you are talking to them about implementation of learning and development intervention. Also give them this picture that this is how people implement. So yeah, so coming back to Kirkpatrick model, so level 1 is testing understanding. Sorry, level 1 is reaction, level 2 is testing understanding, level 3 is when you want to see how have they implemented the learning. Okay, so how are they implementing what they have learned? Is it going to help in to them in their real life scenario? Is it not helpful? Are they is there any mechanism that you have designed in the entire program structure where you are also tracking individuals about the implementation of the intervention of learning? Or is there any forum where, let's say, after 2 months or 1 month, they come back and share best practices with each other that, hey, this is how, this is what I've learned, this is how I've implemented, and these are certain things which I could not implement, and therefore I need support. Therefore, your program design is very, very critical, where if you have kept these elements, like I was talking earlier, that if there is a forum after at the end of month 3, where, or month 2 of an intervention, where participants are coming together and showcasing what they have implemented, it will not give any kind of result. Once this step has been completed, where people have come and showcased how they have implemented, two things will happen. One, it will give them conviction about the overall process of learning, that whatever they are learning, they have also been able to implement. It will give conviction to the business heads or the business line managers who are responsible for ensuring that implementation happens in the organization. It will give them also conviction that, yeah, my team members are implementing. Therefore, whatever investment we are doing in learning and development, it makes a lot of sense. And this effort will definitely translate into the business result. So level 4 is where you start implementing the business impact of the intervention. So you again link it back with the purpose that you started this program with. It could be improvement in the customer service, it could be improvement of any kind of behavioral aspect of people. So you will definitely see some kind of tangible impact. Why did you follow this process? Level 1, level 2, level 3, and then level 4. Level 4 is where you start measuring the impact. So my focus has always been in driving program really hard up to level 3, because if I have created a structure where I have created a feedback structure which is very robust and strong, it is able to assess the reaction of the participant. Second, testing of the participant about the understanding of the topic. Third is an opportunity for them to showcase what they have learned. That's really important. So I use it in all the interventions. I mean, mostly leadership development intervention, where a lot of business heads used to ask me that, okay, uh, design a leadership development journey, but also tell us that how will we judge the impact, how will we judge whether people have implemented it or not. So the best way to do it is uh, design. I call that format executive report out, where what happens in a group. So for example, let's say if I'm doing an intervention of with 20 leaders, and the intervention include one-to-one coaching, group sessions, then definitely I do an executive report out session where all the participants come and they share what they have learned. I create a template for them and I give this template to them, but they share that how what they have learned during the journey and where have they implemented and how it has impacted. So many a times what happens, learning and development managers and HR professionals, who are actually the sponsors of the program, they invest a lot of time and effort in calculating the results. But many a times simple things like inviting leaders together and asking them to share what have they learned and how it has impacted the business to a panel which could include the CEO of the organization, a panel which could have the head of HR, and maybe some other people from the other business domains. And you imagine your leadership team is demonstrating to them that we have gone through this coaching intervention for 3 months, and this is how this coaching intervention has impacted us. It will create a much stronger impact when it in terms of ROI than you going out and doing all the data crunching, number crunching, and showcasing and telling to the world and making a lot of efforts in convincing others that yes, this intervention was good enough and there was an ROI. But only thing that will be required to do take such step is that a lot of courage and conviction and firmness and clarity at the design stage, that whatever you will do, it has been understood very clearly by you. The problem statements have been understood very clearly by you, and therefore your design will reflect the overall impact. So that's something which you need to mm, take care of. So two models. One is Kirkpatrick model, level 1, 2, 3, 4. You can go and measure ROI of an intervention by using Kirkpatrick model. The second is very simple. You just focus on creating an opportunity where participants come and showcase what they have learned and how they have what they have implemented and how it has impacted their business domain. And this presentation happens to a panel which includes people from business side, and you just play the role of facilitator while doing while implementing the entire intervention. You don't go and say that, okay, this is the impact that has been created. You of course know about it, but you allow the stakeholders to highlight these aspects. This will really be effective. Now, second, I want to talk about sales training interventions, because many times a lot of people who are from the sales training domain, they face this major challenge when it comes to ROI. Many times the business heads ask them to take business targets, and a lot of them also take business targets, and they have the capability of delivering business results. They are able to deliver it most of the times. But my sense is that understand, have this discussion with your business head that what is my role? Why are you hiring me? Why have you hired me in the organization? Have you hired me to just drive business results? Therefore, you will evaluate my performance only on the business results, or have you hired me specifically to solve certain problems which could be input related problems? So therefore, you need to be very well aligned. You need to be very clear in having this dialogue, especially in sales learning and development interventions, that what is it that is expected from you, and how are you going to deliver it? Therefore, how these things are going to be measured. So for example, let's say if the expectation is that salespeople should be able to remember a specific script, and therefore they should be able to do prospecting in a specific manner, then you need to create input measures accordingly, right? It should not be that everything that you are doing will result into sales number. It is not going to happen. So you need to co-create the intervention in such a way where you are responsible for driving inputs, and your qualitative inputs can also be quantified, right? And once you are able to quantify your qualitative inputs that you are providing in the entire process, it will be easy for you to focus on your job and deliver the results as per the expectation of the organization. So these are certain things which I thought I'll share with you. In addition to that, when you are designing content for learning and development intervention, right? The kind of tools which you use while designing the content for learning and development intervention are pretty much responsible for driving the ROI of the intervention. Many times, what happens when participants come and attend the learning and development intervention, they are also never made very clear about what is expected from this intervention, and therefore as participants, what is going to be their role, what are going to be their roles and responsibilities when it comes to implementation of entire intervention. If this is made very very clear, and if this can be articulated very very clearly, and if this can be reiterated to the participants as they enter in the learning journey, this will be the start point which will align them that this intervention that is happening, that organization is doing, is not for feel good factor. And therefore there are certain initiatives that will happen after today's learning session, which I will have to consciously implement in my real life. And there are measurement tools which are available, which will also be able to measure whether I have done the correct implementation or not. So therefore, to make this entire intervention successful is not only the responsibility of the person who is facilitating it, it is also the responsibility of the person or who is designing it. So this has to be very very clearly articulated everywhere. This has to be clearly established whenever you are doing any learning and development intervention, designing any learning and development intervention in the organization. Now this can only happen if you understand their business very very clearly. If you do not understand their business clearly, you will never be able to do that. So therefore, again and again, I say that the role of learning and development manager, that is to create an overall impact in the business, and that will only happen once you understand the overall business equation. So when you are talking to your managers, when you are talking to the business heads in the course of designing the learning and development intervention, do you also have enough understanding about the business, and are you also able to challenge certain aspects of business very very clearly, that right? So are you able to challenge certain aspects of business very very clearly, the way business head would like to think, or are you in a position to give a different perspective to the business heads about the business which you think will be really really value add in the overall business? This is something which you should clearly focus on. In fact, there is one article in HBR, and I request all of you, you must read. It was published, I think 5-7 years ago, and it was written by, if I'm not wrong, it is written by Ram Charan, and yeah, I think it talks about it's time to split HR into two, where he talks about very clearly that there are two dimensions of HR. One is the operational dimension of HR, which is the recruitment, operations, and very very important dimension. But this is a very separate, different dimension of the HR, and he strongly recommends that HR should be split in two. The other dimension of HR is learning and development, OD, which is directly linked to the CEO's agenda, which are strategic in nature. Many times, what happens that these two agendas, they get clubbed together, and therefore the L&D, learning and development, and OD function also operates like an operational function. It is not an operational function. It's a very mainstream strategic function in the organization, and a lot of organizations have been able to establish this very very clearly, and they have split these two functions very very clearly, that the one part of HR is very separate from the other part of HR. The one part of HR will drive operational efficiency, which is payroll, recruitment, and other aspects. The other part of HR is OD, L&D, which will help business achieve different things. Yeah. So this is something which is very critical for all the people who are part of learning and development function, or people who are not in learning and development function but they aspire to be part of learning and development function. So these are certain things which you need to be very clear in your mind. And ultimately, uh, knowledge of tools. Yeah. So how are you upgrading yourself as learning and development professional? What are you doing to, how much time do you invest in your own understanding, right? How open are you to look at things from different dimensions altogether? Many times what happens when we are doing our work in a specific way, we get locked in, and we uh, create certain perceptions or certain ways of, we arrive at, we derive our way of working. And many times we are not able to look at things in different way altogether. Therefore it is very important for you also to keep on upgrading yourself, gaining understanding from various in various ways, like doing certifications in learning and development domain, understanding what new things are happening, how talking to learning and development managers, how they are able to impact in their organizations. These are also things which are very critical when it comes to ROI driven learning and development organization. The key pillar in entire framework of a learning and development intervention is the person who is designing and leading the intervention in the organization. If that person doesn't have conviction about uh, ability of an intervention in impacting the business, I mean, no matter how many data points you collect around the intervention, people will never be convinced that this intervention has impacted some or the other aspect of learning. The another way of evaluating effectiveness of learning and development intervention could be uh, looking at the engagement index of the organization, right? How engaged are you measuring? First of all, engagement of your organization. So Gallup as an organization is considered as pioneer when it comes to doing diagnosis of engagement of people, because the simple equation is engagement multiplied by activity is equal to productivity, right? The start point is engagement, then comes activity, and these two things multiplied together, it leads to the productivity. So one of the ways of measuring the overall ROI is measuring the engagement of people, and do read about Gallup Q12. You will find out how 12 powerful questions which Gallup has designed can help you measure engagement of people in an organization. So this could be another way of looking at the ROI of the overall intervention. The one more method, which is a very new method, and I've seen very few organizations using it when it comes to impact creating, measuring the impact of overall organizational development intervention, is people NPS, right? NPS is, a lot of NPS is nothing new. It's Net Promoter Score. You just asked one question, that uh, how would you like to recommend your organization to your friends and family, and likewise you take customer NPS of various services. As OD professional, you start taking NPS of your internal stakeholders, your internal customers. So how well would they like to refer OD function to their friends and family? So the simple formula is, people who give you 9, so you asked this question on a scale of 10, and if people are giving you 9 and 10, they are the ones who are promoters. People who give you score from 0 to 6, they are the ones who are known as detractors. People who give 7 to 8, they are considered neutral. So the overall uh, formula is percentage of promoters minus percentage of detractors. That gives you NPS score. So if you are calculating overall organizational development functions effectiveness in the organization, then you can also look at what is the people NPS of your organization. So if your people NPS is, so let's say you do this exercise in this quarter, in the first quarter, and you arrive at the start point of the NPS, and you say that, okay, my organization NPS is let's say plus 50 or plus 30 or plus 40. Then you keep a goal of improving your NPS in the next quarter. So then, whatever you do learning and development, you do employee engagement activity, whatever, you do succession planning, talent management, whatever you do, uh, the end outcome you have defined is the NPS, that it should increase the overall experience of people in the organization. And if that is happening, then what is the NPS of people? Is there any improvement? Has there any improvement that has happened in the overall effectiveness? Now, this is a very simple way of evaluating the overall effectiveness, and this is something which people will understand very, very clearly. Yeah, like I said, Kirkpatrick model is one of the very old model which people have been using in learning and development for a very long time. Now, this NPS is something which is very new. A lot of new age organization, they don't believe in taking a lot of feedback and assessing an intervention from multiple dimensions. They say that, okay, can we keep it very, very simple, and can we keep it uh, as simple as that people can understand it very, very clearly. And if we have to take certain measures, we should be very clear about where we are going. So this, you can also keep your goal as L&D professional, that, okay, my goal is to drive overall people NPS in the organization. So for example, let's say if your overall NPS, there has been an increment in overall NPS, people NPS of an organization. This will result definitely in productivity. This will result in profitability. This will also result in less attrition of people, more retention, more happiness, more engaged workforce, and it will have an overall business impact. Now, these are certain methods, which can be used. To know more about NPS, you can just Google out Google. You can type NPS on Google, or you can also read a book called The Ultimate Question. It gives very detailed understanding about NPS, and you can read more about it. But yeah, NPS is something which I have used very effectively. Two tools which I have used in addition to Kirkpatrick model is, one is NPS. Second is, creating executive report out sessions in each and every intervention that I am designing, where I'm not showcasing, I'm not talking about the business impact. The participants, they are presenting something to the business heads, and it is then in between business head and the participant, they are doing a lot of cross questioning and validating the inputs that I have given to them. Yeah, and so these are certain ways in which we can look at creating ROI driven learning and development intervention. So that's all from my side. I'm happy to take questions if you have any. I think you have a lot of questions. Peterson, over to you.
So Abhishek, there is one question that we have received from Karuna. She mentioned what would be possible other than qualitative inputs that business outcomes expected from a salesperson? Can it be added customers or team handling? I repeat, what could be possible other qualitative inputs other than business outcomes expected from a salesperson? Can it be added customers or team handling?
So you're talking about a learning and development person who is responsible for sales interventions. So this question, yeah. So my sense is that if you look at the entire Kirkpatrick model, and let's try to answer this by keeping Kirkpatrick model as a base. So what could be the parameters in a sales trainers goal sheet? One is the feedback of the participant. Second is the test scores. Third is the ROI. Third is the implementation metrics. How would you like to measure the implementation? It could be feedback from the supervisor. So for example, let's say if I am a supervisor and my team member has attended a training program, you can ask me feedback about my team member. Is he implementing the program? Is he implementing something? Then my suggestion is that you should avoid taking business numbers, because that's a trap. What happens, the business heads always would like you to drive numbers, and you become one more resource in his team who is helping him drive numbers. No, don't do that. You limit create your parameters in these three things very, very clearly. And ultimate outcome is business outcome is the responsibility of the business heads or the sales professionals who has been hired to do the job. I mean, adding more customers, retaining. Your job is to make sure that you make your inputs very good, and you also make your inputs very, very measurable. So if you make your third input, which is implementation of learning, very, very quantifiable, it will never it will be easy for you to showcase the overall impact, right? And you make it in a way that your business head also has some responsibility while answering the feedback about the implementation. And don't go for numbers. Don't go for numbers. Make level 3 really, really tough for you, and that should be good enough for you to drive results. Yeah. Because what happens the moment you put business numbers, it simply changes your focus also, and their expectation also automatically changes. They never discuss with you about input, they always discuss with you about output, wherein you are always trying to highlight that, hey, this has not happened correctly, therefore the business outcome has not come. So therefore you should be very clearly able to highlight that, hey, level 3 has not happened because you have not driven it, therefore the result has not come. And it is very evident, very clearly visible in the feedback. When I spoke to you about this participant, you and I both are very clear and aligned that this person has not implemented a single thing. And if that has not happened, then I'm not going to be responsible for business outcome.
So well answered, Abhishek. There's a follow-up question on that by Karuna itself. When it comes to NPS, is it a kind of survey? How frequent should it be used, or only one-time assessment will work?
Right. Thanks. So NPS is a survey, and you can take NPS in two ways. You can take NPS in various stages of an intervention. One is the moment participants have completed a program, they have attended a learning session, you can take NPS. That's one milestone. Second, you can take NPS towards the end of the intervention. That's an intervention linked NPS. Where you are linking NPS with the intervention. Second, if you are talking about a business function or overall organization effectiveness, then if you are doing your organizational development initiatives, because organization development intervention does not only include learning and development, it includes employee engagement, talent management, succession planning, other initiatives that you are doing to increase engagement of people. So if you have done all these things correctly, it should result in the overall effectiveness of people function of the organization. So what you can do quarterly NPS in that case, because you will have very clear understanding. A number will come in front of you that first quarter my NPS is, let's say, plus 30. Next quarter my goal is to make it to plus 35. Don't go be over ambitious. Let's say plus 5 you want to increase. Then you take intervention, because when you will take NPS, you will understand that, okay, your NPS is not good in certain pockets of the organization. You'll be able to take very specific intervention. So you will also have time to design intervention and then measure it. So once in a quarter is a good measure. Don't overdo it because it will not give the right picture. Yeah. So two approaches. One is intervention linked. Second is overall organization linked. So that's how you can do.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. Our next question is from Tushar, where he's asking, how do we identify right L&D strategies that remain consistently aligned with business long and short-term goals and objectives?
Good question. So there is no fixed formula for this. The start point is how innovative and how courageous the learning and development manager is. I tell you, one of my, when I joined an e-commerce company as a head of learning and development, I had no idea about IT sector and IT domain. The first intervention that I designed was a technical program for the tech function in that organization. And I was just experimenting, right, with some intent, right kind of intent in mind. I was just, and fearlessly, I was implementing. As I started taking first, second steps, the third step was clear to me. So there is no fixed formula. You have to be courageous enough and fearful. You have to be fearless in terms of going and presenting your thought process to the business heads, and take courage to implement something which you really believe in. And if that is the approach, you will definitely start getting the results. Long term, short term. Yeah, but give yourself some time. Don't expect one program, one session will do magic for you. No, if it is not linked to business, then if you have designed a bad program, but if it is very well linked to business, it will give result. But if you have designed a very good program, very wonderfully looking program, which is like very fascinating, but it is not linked to business, the business heads are not aligned, it will not give result. Yeah, so the focus on should be aligning intervention with the business, and then designing it. Yeah, and give yourself some time, at least 2 months, 2 sessions, 3 sessions, uh, regularity, consistently, and it will start giving results. And you have to be patient, have patience for that time.
It should be aligned towards your business goal and objective in order to see the right kind of return on investment that we're looking at. This takes us to our next question. That's from Dr. Jesse John. Uh, qualitative qualitative aspects can be manipulated, or it can be biased. How can we reduce it?
Good question. I think I'm getting really, really smart questions here. Thank you for asking this question. Yeah, again, what kind of tools are you using? Yeah. So nowadays, there is a technology available. There are, which can independently evaluate, assess the effectiveness of the intervention without having. So ultimately, now what kind of tool are you using? What kind of understanding you have about analytics aspect of the business? Yeah. So if you are using, see, there is nothing which is perfect, which will give you perfect outcome. Perfect outcome of an intervention in an organization is how aligned is it with the business? Then is it working in alignment with the business expectation? And if these two things are very clearly measured, mapped, the result will also showcase that. And don't hesitate in experimenting in terms of analytics also. So many times when you look at a study group, a target group of participants for whom you have designed an intervention, and you start looking at from analytics point of view, and you analyze it from various permutation combination, you see that, okay, some or the other impact has happened. Then the right person to validate it, the impact of the intervention, is the business people of the organization. Right? If they have said that, yes, it has impacted the business, it must have done. If they are not convinced, but we have been able to establish that it has impacted, it will not make any sense. Yeah. So that's how it is. Thank you for asking this question. Good question.